appear in different type of industries related to web design. So SEO, marketing, UX, UI design, front-end development, back-end development. Tonight, the speaker comes from AppsFlyer. And so it's going to be a talk more about marketing. So this guy has been growing the business for a long time now. You said like no, about 10 years, more than 10 years actually, you said. So it should be a very interesting talk. Ronen, you want to come here on stage? Or you can imagine there's a stage. Okay, you need some of those?
So we'll do a little bit of a session on the future of mobile measurement. And I think since we're a pretty small crowd, like if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to ask. I won't be offended. There we go. So that is the future of mobile measurement. It's something that is actually pretty, I want to say it's quite dear to our company, but also me as a professional who's been in this industry for a very long time. How long, you might ask? The clicker? Yeah. No better? Did I turn it off? Yes. I hate it when that happens. So, yeah, so that's me. I'm an Asia growth hacker. So what does that mean? I've actually been living in Asia my whole life. I was born in Taiwan and grew up there. Lived in Hong Kong for 12 years and now Thailand for 15 years. And I actually founded my first mobile startup in 2005. And I thought that was the year of mobile marketing. I was very wrong. But that didn't stop me from really investing myself in this space. I actually became acqui-hired into a company in mobile content and learned how to actually make money on mobile, which was monetizing content like ringtones and jokes and astrology service and that fun stuff that many of you might be familiar with if you had feature phone back in the day. Then moving from the content space to the advertising space, being involved in performance marketing, and then coming across AppsFlyer, where I became the first hire outside of headquarters, which is actually in Tel Aviv, Israel, and here in Bangkok. So yeah, people call me the mobile dinosaur, which I take a lot of pride in that. And then, yeah, I also have a tech leadership podcast series called One Epicenter, where we interview people, thought leaders, founders, entrepreneurs from around the region, specifically in tech. Actually, you can just go to the website, oneepicenter.co. The most recent interview that we had was actually the guy, his office is just across the street there, Kuntop from BitCup. Actually, it's a pretty fascinating interview because I learned so much from this guy about fiscal policy and cryptocurrency and things like that. Very brilliant person. So, what's the line name? I have to pay the bills. So I have to pay the bills for being here. So I'm just going to talk about AppsFlyer for a few moments. We are a mobile measurement company, and we consider ourselves the leader in the mobile space. We have around 65% market share globally. In APAC, that's a little bit higher, around 70%. So if you look at your mobile devices, probably 7 out of the 10 apps that you use on a daily basis have AppsFlyer software in there. And yeah, today over 90,000 apps use our software. And these are basically apps that are quite active in the mobile landscape. We're integrated with nearly 10,000 partners across this ecosystem, whether it's like the Facebooks, Googles of this world, Apple, with agencies like MNC Saatchi or 55. And where were we? And yeah, so quite a ubiquitous player across the space. We measure over 1 trillion events on mobile per month. So you can imagine how much data is being generated from the consumer at any given point in time. In terms of funding, we raised close to 300 million US dollars to date. The size of our business in APAC is somewhere around the 150 million US dollar run rate. Interesting stat, which I'll point out a couple times during this presentation, is mobile ad spend. So as of year to date, we've measured around 40 billion US dollars in ad spend. This is decisions that marketers make using data that we show up on our platform. And of course, we have no interest from any kind of media, so we're purely independent and unbiased player. And that's that for that. We have many offices around the world, and where are we? Yeah, we're also here in Bangkok. And we're also on the 7th floor, like you guys at Seven Peaks. So we invite you over. You have a beer bar, we have a gin bar. Yeah, so just in terms of context, when we look at ad spend, and I want to take a snapshot from the pre-pandemic, we were measuring around 20 billion US dollars in 2019. So it just kind of sets the stage for where we were in this industry. And you might think, going into a pandemic, what could happen to this number? Well, in the during the pandemic era, that 20 billion climbed to 31 billion dollars very, very quickly. So that was around a 55% increase in just a year and a half. So if you look at that, that's probably the GDP of a small country, right? So it's quite significant. And what was growing, right? I think that many of you guys know, based on your own behavior, we saw fintech apps really taking off, gaming really taking off, e-commerce, delivery, and even a lot of companies that didn't even have an app quickly were digitally transforming, and specifically like in the banking sector, where today we probably don't even carry much cash in our pocket anymore. So what were these marketers doing with all this money throwing around, right? $31 billion in ad spend. You kind of can see here that the industry was pretty much swimming in dollars, right? You had marketers that were basically spending with unconstrained budgets. You had, just a lot of ad dollars flowing through this industry. And, whether this was the right behavior or the wrong behavior is probably another presentation. But I think what I want to show here is that the industry actually became even more robust during the pandemic period. But of course, when you look deep down in the ocean below, you have big tech, right? And big tech, as I like to put in this imagery here, is the sharks, right? Sharks are known as pretty calm and docile creatures, right? They actually don't really bother you if you don't bother them, but they can be pretty ruthless when they sense threat around them. And so, the big tech companies that you're all familiar with, Meta, Google, Apple, and some of the likes, they were swimming in this space and enjoying the benefit of these marketer ad dollars flowing. Something that became pretty evident also very, very quick was a lot of the industry started to try and win this badge of the world's shiniest private product out there. And there's a few logos here, of course, including ours. Yes, we are one of those companies that is trying to be privacy first, privacy centric, and state our claim in this space. But as digital advertising and marketing start to reshape itself, there's a lot of changes that have been happening. So I want to show you just like what this full picture looks like, right? And we'll call this kind of the status quo, right? The status quo, remember, is there's these marketers that are swimming in money, basically throwing money, and the sharks down there who are actually the beneficiaries of those ad dollars flowing, and they're all trying to protect those budgets in coming to them and using privacy as the way that they continue to be able to operate in this ecosystem. And designing privacy around their own walled gardens. And let me just give you a couple examples. First of all, I think many of you know what happened with Apple. They released iOS version 14.5, which had a ATT consent box, which is basically the app tracking transparency. How many of you have an Apple phone here? How many of you have seen this pop up? Do you want to be tracked by app so-and-so? Right? And what is your default behavior? No, right? Pretty aggressive wording. Of course, that wording didn't apply to Apple itself because they were default on and you had to opt out while this is an opt-in box. Google also is preparing to release Privacy Sandbox, which is the next ecosystem that will become a kind of more protected privacy-centric space, and that's planned to happen early next year. So there will be more changes there. And of course Facebook, or Meta as they are now known, also designing privacy around their solution, and it would be very difficult for you to find anything that Meta is talking about in the advertising space without them including the words privacy in there. So this has become just example of how big tech is treating this word and the space around them. So privacy is everywhere, right? But it didn't happen overnight. Being a mobile dinosaur, I've been through a lot of changes in privacy, from double opt-in SMS for mobile subscription services to the deprecation of UDID, which was the original Apple device identifier, GDPR, which I believe was 2017, which basically became the gold standard for how privacy enactment happens and consumer protection. And privacy continues to evolve, right? And as I mentioned earlier, that there's only one constant in this ecosystem, is that it's always changing. And companies always have to adapt, marketers have to adapt, and consumers need to adapt to these changes. So here we are today, end of 2022. I hope you've had a good year. 2023, right? What does it mean? I think it's something that we're a little bit cautious about. We don't know if we're going into recession, inflation, if this ad economy continues to be challenged. There's many unknowns, right? And I think the headlines kind of capture it all, right? And it'll be very interesting to see what will happen with companies like Meta. Will they be able to recover from the things that happened during in the past 12, 24 months? We've seen layoffs happening all around us, and this is not a fad, right? It's something that is happening across the tech ecosystem, and so this is definitely something that we should all be concerned and prepared for. But I think that like I was mentioning, that there's one constant which is going to continue here, and there will always be challenge. And when you take challenge and privacy together, then the stakes are much higher. And I think that the ecosystem needs to be able to address these changes. And how is the ecosystem responding to this? So we actually contracted a survey with Mobile Marketing Association to understand how marketers themselves were feeling about these changes in the ecosystem. And it was pretty clear that they knew that they needed better capabilities. A lot of marketers said that they would adopt Apple's SKAd network, which was basically their own measurement solution. Marketers also cited that they would increase their investment in third-party attribution solutions. They would also invest in their own solutions. So clearly, they thought there was many things that they needed to do, but no clear direction on what they need to do. And if we look back at the enactment of the ATT consent back in July of 2021, we have seen almost an immediate plunge in revenue for gaming industry, a 15 to 20% drop, especially so I think this is something that is a concern, right? And I don't think this is something that has recovered very easily, right? If you look at the AAA gaming space, a lot of the gaming revenues have remained flat, while flat isn't the goal, it's to grow, right? And if you look at the AA and single A gaming space, there's actually been a lot of revenue loss. The cost of acquiring users and the cost of retargeting is all increased. So it's fair to say that there's a huge challenge, and I think we're about to go into the next phase of challenge with on the Android ecosystem. Again, capturing some headlines, Facebook said that they would lose around $10 billion in ad revenue. And I think that was an understatement, underestimation of how much they were going to lose. And yeah, we've seen that a lot of, so if you look at the ecosystem and you say that this is a zero-sum game, the ad budgets that are going into this industry are now finite, and whatever is moving away from the traditional players, be it Facebook or Google or Snapchat and the likes, Apple is the main beneficiary of this. Okay. Apple's share in this mobile advertising space has increased dramatically. So, not a lot gets written about these challenges, and I think being an ecosystem in itself, Apple is very smart in the way that they made privacy their main differentiator. And this is extremely smart and strategic of them as a platform. So I guess the question is, if Apple kind of kicked in the door, what's going to happen to this mobile ecosystem when Android enacts their own changes? What does the future hold for marketers? Does anyone know? So it's one of my favorite quotes from Peter Drucker. I think many of you who studied economics will know of him. But he said that the best way to predict the future is to create it, right? And how do you create the future? I guess you need to have a framework. And for us as a company, we have very clear principles in how we operate. And we use those principles to be the guiding principles for how we look at the future and how we need to innovate along the future. And if your principles are constant, then you can innovate around your principles. And our principles have been very clear. As a company, we talk about being customer obsessed. So we need to listen to our clients. They are our customer. We need to listen to our partners. They are our customer. And we need to listen to the market because the market is our customer. Our customer's customer is our customer. And all of you guys who use your mobile phones every day and use apps every day are the ultimate end user. And when we look at this framework, we have almost like this unwritten promise to the industry that we will reinvent, that we will continue to innovate, and we will continue to over-deliver as marketers and this entire ecosystem have a dependency on a company like us to help them navigate the future. So if we look at the status quo when all the marketers were throwing money, they were throwing money at this. They were throwing money at a user, basically at a framework where they have user level data and they're able to optimize from the bottom of the funnel. But this is effectively gone. All these device identifiers and ways of identifying people are gone. So the future is a future where marketers need to look at an aggregate level. They need to look at cohorts and audiences and specific groups and stop trying to optimize from the bottom of the funnel up, but from the top of the funnel down. So I like to use there's a tree here. This is great. It's a Christmas tree, but it's a good example. I always talk about don't focus on the tree, look at the forest for the trees. Right? And when you look at the whole forest, then you actually can see a much better picture and a clearer picture of what you're looking at. And so, as I try and come to the end of this session, and no one's asked any questions yet. Any questions so far? As I mentioned, the era of relying on user-level data for marketing optimization is effectively gone. And it's gone on iOS, and that will be gone on Android ecosystem very soon. Google will deprecate their GAID, which is the main identifier that is being used. Secondly, I think it's pretty clear that we've talked about privacy quite a bit, but marketers need to embrace tools and platforms that are embrace basically privacy-preserving methodologies. Right? There's a lot of change in this industry, and you need to work with companies and partners that share the same principles as you. If privacy is important to you, then make sure you work with a company that has privacy as a core principle. And thirdly, I think it's paramount that you double down on trust, right? And when we talk about trust, as a marketer, right, you have your products and you treat your data very carefully. Right? So essentially, third-party data should be treated as if first-party data. And so you wouldn't lock the front door of your house, but leave the back door open. Right? It's kind of like leaving a gateway to get out. So I think it's very critical that marketers adhere to these three changes that have been happening. I actually asked Chat GBQ, what is it, GTP? I wanted to see how accurate this presentation was, and I actually did put this on today. I'm going to read it to you guys. The future of marketing measurement is likely to involve the use of more advanced technology and data analysis techniques to provide better insights into the effectiveness of marketing campaigns. Something we talked about, right? As the amount of data available to marketers continues to grow, it is likely that there will be an increased focus in using data to drive decision-making and optimize marketing efforts. This may involve the use of artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms to identify patterns and trends in large data sets, as well as the development of new metrics and benchmarks to more accurately measure the success of marketing campaigns. Here's the best part. Ultimately, the future of marketing measurement is likely to be driven by a combination of better technology and greater understanding of the role that data can play in driving business growth. So, has anyone played around with this yet? No? You're too scared? It's fun, isn't it? Fun, right? I mean, I start to ask chat GB. Well, I don't even know. Anyways, I asked this AI engine questions about the company that I don't even know. And, so yeah, so I think just to kind of summarize here that the mission that we as a company have set out to do is to supply accurate insights while using privacy-preserving technology. And I think even more important is that we believe that user experience and privacy do not inherently contradict one another. And as a company, this is something that we are very committed to in how we see and envision a more privacy-centric future. So that's kind of the presentation for today, and I would love to answer any questions except from this table here.
Let's get the microphone first. Any questions? Raise your hand. Yeah, I've got a question.
There's a lot of debate. Hi, I'm Cedric, by the way. And there's a lot of debate around the concept of consent, right? And the necessary value exchange between an advertiser and a consumer, like all of us. So what's your point of view on this, and how does that translate into, well, perhaps the future of AppsFlyer?
It's a great question, and I think that we ourselves are consumers, right? We know that when we are giving up or giving consent, that we are getting something in exchange. We are expecting that by giving you permission, that we're going to have a better experience, that we're going to be having better benefits. But I don't think this is something that you can ask immediately as a marketer. I think you have to earn trust, right? And a lot of, if you look at this, this ATT consent pop-up, right? Actually, marketers are given the option of when they want to show this, right? It doesn't happen automatically. So what marketers have learned is that as users progress through their app or their business per se, and start to get more involved, and then they reach a certain stage, then the marketer will ask, I mean, effectively in a nice way, hey, are you enjoying my service? Are you enjoying this platform? I can give you a better experience if you accept these terms and conditions, or agree to be, in Apple's terminology, tracked. But it's a little bit the wording. You don't have much flexibility in what you can do. But we've seen that with optimizing just this, when this when this pop-up box is shown, that marketers can increase their consent by, I think the industry standard is somewhere between 15 and 19%. But marketers who are really focused on this are able to double this. So, and especially here in Southeast Asia, it might be a language issue, I don't know, but we've seen acceptance rates of between 35 to 40%. And so this is basically saying trust, right? Allow is basically saying trust. And so you have to build up this relationship, and yeah, I think it's be very clear about what you're using this data for, and make sure that you don't violate it, because it can take a long time to earn the trust and moment to lose it. So.
Hi, my name is Ronen. I work for a company called Next Billion. We help basically the companies to collect the first party data. So do you think, like, I'm in the company which are actually collecting the first party data, and then they can actually retargeting, creating like the way we call it, look for the forest, not for the tree. Okay, so that help actually the companies to retarget much more a specific way if they have like some sort of first party data of a sample of their consumer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the goal of all companies is to basically acquire as much first party data as possible. The first party data happens when there's consent, and what happens is you take third-party data and you overlay it with first-party data, and you use like technologies, for example, like data clean room, where you can do this exchange of sharing insights, attaching it to specific user sets or campaign groups that you see are performing well, and share those with the partners that you are working with. Using this, you can actually generate this type of retargeting behavior that you're asking about, and you can actually improve the way that you are marketing. But I think the most important part is how you exchange or how you collaborate with exchanging data without compromising user level integrity, right? You as a marketer, if you are a marketer, you have this first party data, and you don't want this first party data being openly shared outside of your platform. So I think that the key is, how do you do that? How do you preserve privacy, and how do you also deliver the best experience that you want as a marketer?
To do with the chat thing? Sorry for the microphone. There's a process.
That's right. So the chat GDP, whatever it's called, yeah? What's the impact you think it's going to have? It's relatively new. What are you seeing that it's going to do to your business, to your industry?
I think we're about 2 weeks into playing with this. A lot of us are having fun with this. I think at the same time, people are asking, wow, this is really good. How is it going to impact, this industry? How is it going to impact my business? And even Google has come out and said, right, this tool doesn't replace search, right? It's if I look at it from our business perspective, I think it's actually very valuable, because we've already done some queries on it where we see that there is a way that we can use this to help our customer success team basically manage clients in a more scalable way, right? Especially at when you have thousands of customers, you can't treat all those customers the same. And so when you have tiering of customers, maybe what we call the long tail, will be able to service them in a more effective way using tools like this. So I think it's pretty exciting.
So that's going to affect your pricing, though, isn't it? Because you've got to be open to say some of the text and some of the articles you're going to create, for example, are going to be created by this.
Well, this has to acquire the data, the information from somewhere, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so it will be our responsibility to train this chatbot to be able to actually give the correct responses.
They seem pre-trained already, good enough. Getting close, give it 12 months time. The you probably won't deal with the training. It's going to be a private company.
I think that's pretty good, no?
Yeah.
I mean, if AI has a purpose, right? And I don't think we're here to challenge where AI can go and what it can do. And I think if I look at just, there's certain things that it will be able to handle, but I think that there's a limit, at least for now, there's a limit to what it will be able to do. So it will allow us to actually be able to scale more effectively with our resources and apply them to those areas which are less AI or serviceable. Thank you. Yeah.
More questions?
Another one?
All right. 2023.
2023.
What are the trends in terms of well, you cover the whole region, right? Where do you see growth? Where do you see the more, challenges for you? Some particular industries, perhaps?
I think that in this tech space we're still going to see some consolidation happen. It's not over. When I say it's not over, I mean that there's more blood to be shed. I think it will take time for this to recover. We're seeing ad budgets. So if I look at it from a marketing perspective, while marketers used to operate in the status quo area, basically unlimited budgets, those days are gone. Right? Marketers now work with finite budgets, and they are going to have to show a return for those budgets that they're working with. So I think that's probably the first thing. I think that if you look at the ways that, for example, e-commerce companies have been operating on spending money to incentivize users to buy, right? I think that's going to change because I think those e-commerce platforms are going to have to now show a profit. And you look at some of the companies out there, like, for example, Shopee, they're laying off thousands and thousands of people because they need to get on a path to profitability. I think that's probably the second thing that I see, and I think that when there are these challenges, we're also seeing some bright spots. So there's companies, specifically in the ad tech platforms, that are actually finding the space more, that they're able to compete once again, because the advantages that Meta has and Snap has and these other platforms have been neutralized. So now it comes back to the technology and how they're able to show ads and in a more contextual manner by being able to pick up signals that now are on par with everyone. So yeah, and the macro, I don't know. I mean, it's anyone's guess. Does the stock market go up, down? What happens to currency exchange rates? What happens to the mortgage market? What happens to cryptocurrency? So many different factors that it's pretty scary to think about.
Yeah, Mateo, with you.
I want to know that why the digital privacy is matter to every people much, because normally we also having to develop the platform and the company by using the personalized data, and how to balance it, like in Thailand also, like we also have the tracking from the government or something, so like it's not matter.
Yeah, I think you have many different types of regulations. So as you mentioned, there's the government, which has the PDA or something, not PDPA. So that's something that is enactment. There's also, why is this being done, right? Is that they don't want individual consumers' data being openly shared around the internet. Right? They want to protect the consumer, protect consumers' rights, but more so if you look back at what happened with GDPR, they want the consumer to have the right to be forgotten or to be wiped from any systems. And I think it's what you mentioned is right? As a consumer, you want to have a better experience, but you also don't want to share information about you. So it's kind of conflicting in some way, that you say like, oh, I want to have more relevant ads, or I want to see ads that are more catered to me, or I want the discounts that I'm going to redeem. But you also say that you don't want to give the information that you were giving in the past, Because once you start to know that your information is out there, then you start to be more protective of it. And so I think that there has to be a balance. And the balance is, what is the best experience for the customer? And we are all customers in here, but many of us are marketers. We also think like, what is the information that we need to be able to deliver that experience, but keep privacy as a center to how we operate as a company. Because I can tell you that the downside of this is that if data is leaked, then the penalties on companies can be huge. And in some cases and in some countries, they bill, like the government has the right to charge up to 20% of your revenues, which can destroy a company. Right? So the government is protecting consumer. Industry has to protect the consumer. But the thing with technology is that it's always evolving. And because it evolves, it's hard to determine regulation. And you're planning for the future today. I hope that helped.
Does the baby have any questions?
Yeah, baby, do you have a question?
Not yet. No? We come back in 15 years for the questions.
Yeah. Which is your team, baby? You have a team in the World Cup still? No? Morocco? What?
Okay, any more questions? No? All right, thank you very much.
All right, tomorrow night we're going to have one event about e-commerce. So a lot of things that we talked tonight about GDPR, e-commerce personalization, how do you use the data, and what's the restriction around it. So we're going to be talking more about this one tomorrow actually. So that was very good that you talk about it because we can push that topic more tomorrow. Next week on Wednesday, so December 21, we've got another event about UI design here in this office as well from a French company, French agency, that's going to come to Thailand just to visit and going to give a talk about how to fuck up your project as a UI designer. That's a nice title, sets the mood. And the next events will be in January, but nothing really scheduled yet. But we've got events every week or every other week here at 7 Peaks. So if you guys go to 7 Peaks Speaks, so that name over there, but with Speaks at the end. So you can check all the events on that page as well, from BKK WEB to the 7 Peaks Speaks events as well. We've got events all the time here. So you guys are more than welcome to come back even once. We've got pizza right there, some beer, some drinks, fresh, Coca-Cola and so on. So just enjoy, do some networking, and thank you very much for coming tonight here.